It is 9:01. We're here for the April 10th Wright County Board of Commissioners. So please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome everybody. Minutes from April 3rd, 2018.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from April 3rd.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter, third by Commissioner Hewson. Is there any discussions? You found nothing wrong?
I didn't.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Review and approval of the agenda. Is there anything to add to the agenda?
Mr.
Perfect.
Chair, seeing nobody's stepping up, I'll make a motion to approve the agenda as presented.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Hewson. Any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I'll second that.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Hewson. Any discussions at all?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
On the Springstead, in accordance with the Springstead action that we just took, consulting service, I just want to make sure that the professional analysis questionnaire, make sure that they take extra time on that one to get clear, because I think that's one of the points of that wasn't clear last time when they were doing that, the job description and what it means. I mean, it looks like it's really good and laid out for answers, but make sure that there's plenty enough time to have clarity. If anybody's got questions on that, they can get that, because that's the only part of this I saw that was a part of the troubling part last time.
And Mr. Chair, too, I mean, they certainly seem to have allowed plenty of time for all this, and I was interested in all the different government agencies, or not just government agencies, that have used them. I mean, we're talking from as low as a couple hundred.
Let's pull this from the consent agenda as long as we're going to have all this discussion regarding it.
Well, that was my only question, is to make sure.
Just going to point that out.
Mr. Chair, that was the only question, is that to make sure it's got enough
still
time.
some statements here, so let's just pull
Mr.
it.
Chair, can I redo my motion? Can I withdraw my other motion?
Sure.
Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we approve the consent agenda, removing item B. You're okay with that?
Yes. Second that.
All right, we have a motion by Commissioner Burrell and a second by Commissioner Hewson to pull item B
And approve the rest.
and approve the rest. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those.
Mr. Chair, I apologize for making this a challenge. I just couldn't get out of here quickly today, could we?
No, we have some extra time to kill anyway. I mean, you know, there's things we'd just rather wait on anyway, highway stuff. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Commissioner Hewson, you were saying...
Oh, it was just, such a variety of entities, and the numbers, the populations, and of like a small city of a few hundred to over 10 million. And so I thought that certainly showed that they had a wide variety of experience with all sizes, essentially. And I know that other counties that I am on committees with have used them too, so.
Well, I just heard this morning that Wright County Soil and Water is going to be using Springstead too.
Okay.
With a very real possibility.
They did approve it last night. Well, I guess it's subject to Luke's last minute questions.
Yeah, I didn't really have further comments, I just
No, but
wanted to make a note.
but we were discussing it, so.
Yep.
All right, so I'll entertain a motion for accepting the,
So moved.
I'll
contract with
second that.
Springstead. Motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Houston. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. Can we skip these guys and move on?
Sorry.
Mr. Chad Houseman?
Close enough.
Houseman.
Good morning, Commissioners. Jeremy's going to hand out an updated resolution and Exhibit A, which was not included. The change to the resolution is an additional property owner, additional LLC, as part of parcel 14, I think. So we just have an updated resolution. But today we're just here to more of a procedural action now to commence the eminent domain proceedings for the right-of-way on CASA 18 in St. Michael between MacGyver and CASA 22 or Neighbor Avenue. So there's 7 parcels. The appraisals have been completed, but in order to keep the project on schedule, we need to initiate the action now. We'll continue to negotiate in good faith. Like I said, in the 5.5 years I've been here, we've had one parcel go to the actual eminent domain proceedings. We've been able to settle ahead of time. This is a little quick. Normally we provide the offers and negotiate ahead of time before doing this, but in order to keep the project on schedule, we'll still have 90 days to negotiate, and we don't see many issues out here. But so that's what this resolution is for. I mean, if anybody has any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chad, the open house we had on this had a lot of good comments. I think we've been very careful in making sure everybody knows what's going on. It's been modified many times to accommodate some people. And I think it's something that needs to get done as far as safety and everything for the future, and just get this done. And with that, Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion to approve resolution for the right-of-way of CASA 38.
Second it.
All right, I have a motion by Commissioner Potter, second by Commissioner Burrell. Is there any other discussions on this? I just have one that I think we're moving a little faster than we really need to. Have you gotten the appraisals back yet?
Yes, we have.
And has those been sent out to the people?
Today.
And so you really don't want to wait another week to do this? Until they get a chance to get out there?
I don't think it would change our meetings with them or negotiations with them, because I think, you know, like I said, the appraisals are done by certified appraisals. It'll just, we still have, rather than 90 days, it would be 97 days, you know, and I think a week of construction, we're already looking at probably a July start in order, because of the school, in order to try to get as much work done before school starts. We don't want to lose that week. And we're already losing, you can see now we're losing a lot of time on the front end this year, and so I prefer to just proceed, yeah.
Well, the original plan was to do this as soon as school got out, correct?
Correct.
So if not going to be doing it till July now, there you're 3 weeks behind.
Yes.
So that means they're going to go 3 weeks longer into the fall during school time?
Not necessarily. Like I said, everything's weather dependent. I mean, we're only talking a mile of road. We did 3 miles of road out on by the County Road 3 project last summer in about 2.5 months. So if we get a good contractor with good weather, they should be able to knock that out very quick.
Good weather would be the question.
Yes.
Mr. Chair.
Commissioner Potter?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, Albertville acted on that. Tonight, City of St. Michael acts on this road here to do the final action to move forward. In that, the 90-day is the way we got to go. We've had enough delays on this. The wheels of government move slow enough without us trying to slow it down a little bit. And I'm one that would like to just call the question and move this forward.
All right. Any other discussions? Hearing none.
So, because I mean, without the appraisals, you said they were mailed out today? They will get mailed out today? I mean, is that our common practice to do it in this order?
Typically, no, but our last few typically we've had, our last few reconstructs, they've been every 2 or 3 years, just because of funding reasons, so we've had much longer duration to acquire right away. We've kind of pressing Jeremy to acquire it now, just because now it's on a yearly basis, and actually multiple projects in a year as far as reconstructions, thanks to the local option sales tax. And so we are compressing his time frame, and we actually spent a lot more time on the front end trying to reduce the impacts. So that's kind of caused some of the less time on the back end. So I think, but overall, I think it was it was good to take that time to refine the impacts and minimize the amount of land we need to take. Just
Yeah, Mr. Chair, they certainly, the scope that we initially were considering was much larger as far as the private land, and it's reduced by quite a lot. And we've had a couple of meetings on this, public hearings, or one public hearing at least, and another meeting. So I feel that they've done their due diligence.
So you said this new resolution, you had some changes on it? Because I see there's names that are no longer on the new one.
The addition would be the, is it parcel 14, Jeremy? There's 2 LLCs associated with it instead of 1.
Yeah, but on parcel 19, there was people on the first one that are not on the second one. They're deceased, and you have different names the way they are, but it's just written differently.
Oh, yeah.
Where's that?
You removed the deceased people on parcel 19.
And then you got rid of the AKA, too.
Yeah,
I don't know if that makes a difference or what.
And Mr. Chair and Board, those names should still be on the resolution, so I will work with staff to get those back on there. That's a mistake on our part. Those names, those deceased names should still be on the resolution.
And the AKA?
Yes, as well as the AKA.
So can we approve this without having the proper ones?
Mr. Chair, members of the board, I think a motion would be in order to amend the condemnation resolution for CASA 18 to incorporate the prior published version of the listed owners for parcel 19.
Mr. Chair, I'll amend my original motion to include that.
I'll second that.
And then I think at that point in time, we can approve the resolution. That's approved.
All right, so we have a motion and an amendment by Commissioner Potter, a second, and the amendment agreement by Commissioner Burrell. Any other discussions?
It's just, we have to vote on the amendment first, is all.
The amendment of adding those ones, we're not voting on the resolution, we're just amending.
No, I believe, yes, procedurally, the first vote that you would take would be to adopt the amendment, and then the...
Because we haven't had a motion yet to approve the resolution, this is just to make the amendment, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
From the one that was in the original agenda. Yeah.
And that wouldn't be by resolution, just by motion.
By motion, yep.
Okay. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous. On the resolution itself, it is a roll call vote. Commissioner.
Do we have a motion on the actual roll call, on the actual passing of the resolution, or we just have one for the amendment?
No, we had those before.
Okay.
Potter and...
All right.
Commissioner Potter and Burrell.
I vote aye.
Aye.
No.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carries 4-1.
thank you.
Mr. Mattice.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Had a park commission meeting March 12th. Here today to go over that. Took some actions, some things FYI on in the minutes. If you have any questions, feel free to ask them. Main action that they took was, turn that on.
Lights off?
Look at that. Well, you know, these things always are a struggle. Let's try this one. There we go. So that is the Lake Moses or Moose Lake portion of Stanley Eddy Park. The parcel highlighted in blue, which you can't really see because the light is poor, but it's right up there. Point that goes out on Moose Lake. It's owned by John Eddy. John Eddy is the uncle of Stanley Eddy, which the park was originally, the original track was donated to us in memory of Stanley, who died in a tree trimming accident. They owned a nursery in Howard Lake. John is elderly now and has some health issues. His son, Mark, so a cousin of Stanley, contacted me a while ago. And this is the last property that he's owned in the area, and they were wondering if we would be interested. And I said, well, we are interested in a different parcel that we have talked about prior. This is the entire Stanley Eddy in green, and if you recall, we just submitted a grant for that 20 acres that's landlocked. Told them grant deadlines are well past at this time, and we are currently in the master planning process, re-updating the master plan for Stanley Eddy, which will be coming to you when we're completed, which will show a lot of information for you. I said I'd bring it to the board, see if we're interested in having those discussions, including it in the master plan, and maybe for $400 I could get an appraisal done and be prepared for the next grant cycle that starts in January.
Mark, where on this map, where is the part that you're talking about today?
This point right here.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, Mark, when you showed us the other photo, there's...
Yeah,
Huh?
the zoomed in version, yes.
Yeah.
The zoomed in version?
Yes, there's a...
Those are all houses or lots or what? On the
These are all lots.
like there?
Some seasonal, some year-round.
And what is the makeup of that property that he's offering?
It's got there's some spruce trees and pine trees planted up on a little ridge. It's got a nice little high point. Our public water access is right here, which we just had a lot of debate at Park Commission meeting about for a few months, and flows in across our boundaries. It's a nice piece of property.
So it's very tiny. What is it, 5 or 10 acres, and not even?
You know, I say all sorts of things, so I'm going to actually look here. It is 6.76 acres. The 2018 assessment from the assessor's office is 63.3. Taxes payable in 18 are $408
$408,000
for the property.
So if that was developed into more housing for private, I mean, that looks like it might be kind of a nice spot for
Beautiful
people.
spot.
Yeah.
That's not, obviously not their desire as owners of the property. So,
You said how big was that lot?
6
acres. And you said the tax assessed value was 63,000?
No.
For,
The 2018 assessed
assessor.
value from our county assessor is 63.
Really? On 6 acres on a lake? I understand.
Well, the stuff on the left is not part of the lake. And it's not very sandy, if I remember correctly.
No, it's pretty well, got some native aquatic vegetation along the fringe on
Okay, so
it.
it's more of a wetland.
Well, there's high points on the land.
Got
You know,
ridges on the land.
usable acres to build on is not 6.
It couldn't be too bad there, because we have our boat landing over on that side.
Oh, so exactly, yeah, I mean.
Yeah, the shorelines works for a boat landing, wouldn't work for a beach. Well, he did all the permitting processes right, he would, but. Never say never on anything, right, Mr. Burrell?
I'm kind of going off what Commissioner Houston said here, though. It's like, man, that could bring a lot of tax revenue in, because it would be worth a whole lot more than 63,000 if you put 6 more houses out there.
You would never get 6 houses on there.
That would be only an acre apiece.
Yeah, but you do have some low areas and.
Low areas, shoreline
Probably get 3
setbacks,
lots.
So Mark, you think
Yeah, you
it's
get-
worth pursuing
septic
then?
systems, but
Looks like about 4 lots to me, but maybe.
They must have, is it, those other lots, like, they're really compact in there. Is there like a shared septic with all those other lots? No? Because those other,
Weekend lots.
weekend lots.
Yeah.
But, you know, I don't think it's our determination if it's private developed. I mean, they don't want to develop it, so I don't know what they would do with it.
Yeah,
If they sold it, I mean, they might not sell it, just leave it as is. You know,
So, Commissioner Delight and Mr. Chair, what, you feel it's worth pursuing then, or? I mean, you're on the board over there. We don't know a lot more than we do.
Yeah, I unfortunately didn't make that last meeting to have discussions about it.
So the Parks
I was sick.
Commission's recommendation was to go forward.
unanimous for the
Unanimous,
Park
okay.
Commission.
And this is just for an appraisal.
Yes, at this time it'd be an appraisal. As we're updating our master plan, we'd include it into potential acquisitions, desired acquisitions, and then we'd be prepared to go for a grant in January of 19.
It couldn't cost that much.
$400 for an appraisal.
I think it might be worth exploring. Be a nice little picnic area and stuff. As long as we have our boat ramp there, it would make it a little more nicer. What's up to the board?
You don't think you could put more, well, putting the cart before the horse, but more campsites out there? Or for an RV?
do we really want another campground?
Glider camp.
Well, how's the board feel?
$400, Mark would probably pay that himself almost, so.
Mr. Chair, I wouldn't mind moving forward to get an appraisal or to take a look at it, but I don't know how much more parkland we need. We're getting that other piece in there, and so that's, I guess.
And as the master plan comes along, and you guys have time to sit down and review the master plan, that's gonna put more clarity on what we're looking at for Stanley Eddy Park.
Yeah.
This kinda gets, moving forward with the appraisal would probably put the landowner in a holding pattern for you.
This is kind of a different park. I mean, what is it? It's 5 different, it's not contingent, it's, you know, right? It's kind of all over the place. 4?
The heck?
1, 2, 3, 4 different
That is
pieces.
backwards and upside down and everything else. That's closer. So this is the north unit. This is the Moose Lake unit. Boy, them lights are terrible. This
Oh,
is the
so-
south unit, and this is connected through an easement.
Oh, they have an easement between
Yeah,
those
so
two.
it's 3 separate units. When we're looking, some of the strategic, and we'll review a lot of this tomorrow in our CIP meeting at 1 o'clock. Some of the processes in our strategic plan is looking at this park and how to connect the units over time through easements or like we have with that south part, provide better recreational activities.
Okay. Mr. Chair, I'll make a motion that we go ahead with the appraisal, and I have my concerns. I'm with Commissioner Houston on that, but we'll address that later. So.
I'll second going forward with at least for the appraisal part.
Motion by Commissioner Burrell, second by Commissioner Vetch. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Once you get the appraisal, nothing says that you can't go back and negotiate and work with them to buy half and have them donate half or something to that effect.
Nope.
You can do all that sort of stuff. too.
Anything less than the appraisal that they take would be something that they could take off on tax benefits as a donation.
Yeah. So it could be to an advantage to them tax-wise too.
Right.
Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Scott Johnson, we're almost on time. We're only off by 11 minutes.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. My name is Scott Johnson, Excel Energy. I am here to ask for a resolution on House File 3708, which is carried by Marion O'Neill, and Senate File 3504 by Senator Matthews. Just here for a little bit of information, questions, and answers. But this bill would provide a new tool for the Minnesota Public Utility Commission to review and approve nuclear cost and investments that we are making, are going to make before they're incurred. This is sometimes referred to as advanced determination of prudency. This allows the company to pursue those investments with confidence that we're proceeding with agreement with our regulators about the cost before we spend the money. And typically what happens is we spend the money and then go back and ask the PUC for approval of that money. What happened a couple years ago when we spent $600 million, some of that money was disallowed by the PUC. So what we're trying to do is show how we're going to spend the money up front, get approval before we spend the money. And this will help us. We have, how can I say this? This is going to help us keep those new plants operating to the end of licensure. We have commitment from our CEO, you know, if some of these measures are passed, that we're going to make those investments and operate them to the end of licensure. So this is one bill that, you know, gives us some assurity that we can make investments and, you know, get that money back in return. So this is another tool for the PUC. It's not going around the PUC. They can take a look at what we're going to spend up front and approve that money. Any money that we spend over that, that's not in that budget, we hit it by our shareholders, not the ratepayers. So we feel it's a good deal. So I think that's, I'm going to leave it as. I'll open it up for questions. Mr. Vetch.
Yep, Mr. Chair. I've kind of gone through this, and I support this resolution. The city of Monticello has gone through and passed this resolution, and as of recently this morning, our local chamber in Monticello has passed a resolution supporting this bill. This is just kind of showing our support for what needs to be done to help them accomplish the funding mechanisms that they need to be able to operate these nuclear plants in our area. So with that, I'm going to start off and at least make the motion to pass the resolution to support bills 3708 and Senate File 3504.
I'll second that.
Three of us wanted to second it, so.
Well, Mr. Potter was louder.
Yeah, I know.
Commissioner, motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any other discussions? Charlie?
Mr. Chair, I just can't imagine that this isn't even already out there, because it's almost a deterrent, the way things are now, to do investment in the generation facility, because, you know, yeah, we might be able to get our money back for this, or we might not. And
right. But it's a change of the way it's always been done, and that's you know, that's the reason, you know, trying to change that moving train is sometimes very political.
No, I'm supportive of it. Leave it at that.
I hope that we can keep our nuclear plant going for a long time. It's clean energy, and they've certainly been a
Right, that's our
great
plan.
addition to Wright County.
Right. One of our goals is to be 80%, you know, carbon-free by 2030, and this is the big way to do it. These plants have got to operate for us to do that, so.
And Scott, could this help? I mean, at some point, I mean, there's always talk, there's never been a new nuclear plant in the United States, but is this something that you might consider now, if you can say this investment is going to be this much, we need to have it paid for? Or?
Minnesota has a nuclear moratorium where we can't even discuss new nuclear plants.
You can't even talk about it, even here.
Well, we can talk about it here, but we can't even bring it up as to do a determination what would be better, nuclear plant or a gas plant, coal plant, nuclear. We can't even bring it up as part of the discussion.
I thought there was a new one going in somewhere in the United States. Georgia, that's what.
Yeah, there's 2 units in Georgia. What's happening now is they're very, very costly. I think they were like $10 billion at the time when they were proposed. they're quite a bit over that budget right now. They're like the $15-16 billion range, so they're quite expensive with all the regulations that they put on there.
That's the problem, is the regulations.
Right.
I've heard from people that a lot of the equipment in your existing facility is actually old, but because of the regulatory requirements and newer equipment hasn't been approved for use in a nuclear plant, although millions of units have been sold of pH meters and connectivity and whatever have you, because it doesn't have that nuclear stamp, you can't use it.
Yeah.
Which to me is regulation going a little too far.
Mr. Chair, Scott, how would you like us to proceed with this resolution? How do you want it distributed? Do you just want an electronic copy or hand copy, just so Susan knows how to move forward if it's passed?
Electronic would be great. You could send it to me email after it's signed, and I'll take it from there. So I will pass to our lobbyists of what's happened, and they can put it in Marion O'Neill, the Energy Commission's hands. They can put a part of that file. So that'd be great.
All right. So a motion by Commissioner Vetch, second by Commissioner Potter. Is there any other discussions? Hearing none, roll call vote. Commissioner Vetch, we'll start with you.
Aye.
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 Great.
Good luck.
Resolution.
Thank
you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
There are no items for consideration today. So that means Advisory Committee, Advisory Board updates. Commissioner Vetch.
1 second here. Well, myself and Commissioner Dahlheiden met last week on Wednesday to talk about the credit card acceptance project, and there's some changes. We'll be meeting again today at 3 o'clock. We fleshed out some interesting pieces of information in that, and more will be to come with that. So, let's see here, last week. Township officers meeting. We had for those of you there, and those of you who were not, which I can't blame Mark, he didn't have a township there to represent. But we talked a little bit on my side about the gravel tax and what may or may not be taking place, and got out some good information, good discussion with that. We had some good discussion on buffers, thanks to Charlie, which was good. So, other than that, I was not at Bertram, but Mark, you'll cover that for me. That's all I have.
Commissioner Potter.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Last week, I-94 had an open house in St. Michael City Hall. It was very well attended. There was only a couple people that had questions, concern. One was actually on the borderline of belligerent, but that's to be expected where they live on 94, just west of what's 241 in that Sonia Zach. I don't know what that subdivision's called. There's about 9 or 12 houses down there in the hollow. And they were kind of upset that the MnDOT was not going to spend $680-some thousand on a sound wall for them.
Oh, Crow River Highlands?
Is that what that's what it's called? Okay, and that lower part, that lower level of it.
Down by Diego's?
Just past Diego's, just the west of Diego's.
Yeah, that was Diego's property. Yeah, that was their development.
So it was interesting, and you can hear their concerns with that, but the logic of it is if we just stop the expansion, that somehow is going to make congestion less and quieter, and I had a hard time grasping onto that type of logic.
Should have made that meeting. I hear that freeway noise up by my house. I was hoping they'd put a wall down there.
Do you really think it'll make that much of a difference?
I don't know. I don't know.
They cost, and they, if it was more people, it'd be one thing, but that's not a lot of people. But and one of their alternatives with the city of St. Michael is to get a variance for them that are concerned about that to have a higher than a 6-foot high fence to mitigate that. One of the concerns you had is since you didn't have the whole neighborhood down there, just had 2, and they're right next to each other, and one of them hadn't been there very long. The rest of them, you put up the sound wall, and the rest of them are saying, well, geez, you just took my view, and I didn't get no sun, and it's snow in July in there, and everything else. And MnDOT has they make you do the noise mitigation, but they also actually temper it out. What is the cost and what's the gain? I mean, But otherwise, besides that, everything else is good, and I applaud not only Steve Bott, but Claudia Dumont from MnDOT for putting up with those. One of those two was just attacking like crazy the whole time, and she held up real well, explaining this is the process, this is what they're going through. Otherwise, it was a well-attended. There was a lot of good comments on the project itself. I mean, and they also had laid out the 241 bridge and everything else, and why it's needed. So that was very, very good meeting for the public. That's all I have, Mr. Chair.
Wish they would do County Road 37 bridge too, because that was sure, or 137, because that's sorely needed too.
Mm-hmm.
A little narrow bridge.
Bad sight lines too.
Really. Coordinator Kelly, since I missed the ERP meeting on Friday, and you were there, I'm assuming, do you have anything to talk about in the ERP meeting and anything else that you want to put in?
Sure, Mr. Chair. As you mentioned, we did have an ERP meeting with the group that went through the Infotech session. We had some discussion about the status of where we're at and if we felt we have wrapped up the business case and demonstrated the need. We talked about next steps moving forward and engaging a firm to help us draft the RFP and then vet the RFP responses. The group decided to continue on with Infotech. So our action item out of that meeting was to reach out to Infotech and work on scheduling a meeting to get that going. So some dates to get that going will probably be the next topic of the next ERP meeting, which isn't set yet. So that was one item. We did also meet with BKV Group and Contegrity via phone to discuss the alternate bids for the dirt work and so forth regarding the trail. They're going to be planning a site visit with the contractors to talk about, make sure they certify their bid on that. That's probably going to take place Thursday of this week. We also had a company IAG commercial reach out to us regarding this facility, just kind of see where we're at with it and curious about potential uses of it in the future. They had some discussion with the city of Buffalo that had sent them to our direction, so we had a meeting just kind of talking about our plans and, you know, if they knew anybody that might be interested. We did inquire with them, and they will be submitting a proposal to us. I did inquire to them, you know, could you give us an estimate of what the value of this property would be, either as it exists for a new tenant to move in or just if it was bare land or for redevelopment. So waiting for that to come back. From then, again, it's just a proposal. Some interviews going on, of course. Communication specialist is tomorrow, and our HR representative backfilling closed. We had 70 applicants on that one. So another very strong showing in the posting. So
good. How many did you have for the communications director?
I think it was similar in number. Very strong candidates throughout. Good. It was hard to make it down to the final for the first interview. So.
How many interviewing?
I believe we offered 5 interviews, and I believe 4 have scheduled. So.
Oh, good.
Should be good.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Lee, what was the? Do we have an idea what the Infotech was going to charge to walk us through the RFP process?
They threw out a number of about 80,000.
Okay,
so it will be
right about what we were expecting to spend.
Correct. Yes, and I think from what I've read, and I would advise that we have to do a lot of the diligence on the front end. This will be a big project. We have to make sure we have everything planned. The nice thing about them, they will also be able to help us in the vetting of the vendors that submit RFPs back, and they will actually, I believe, as part of their proposal, would sit with us during the interview process. So,
So are these expenses coming out of technology CIP or professional services and admin?
had planned it for professional services, unless there's other guidance from the board.
And I think you forwarded that article regarding ERP that was in the Minneapolis trip to everybody.
I did, yes.
I don't know if you've had an opportunity to look at that.
I got that.
It was regarding ERP in both some counties and also some commercial applications, industrial applications on successes and failures. And their biggest thing was
Look back if I missed that one.
buy-in. We talked a little bit about it last time we had a meeting back here for something, I don't remember what it was anymore. And I think you sent it out at that time.
Yes, it was a
That's a
previous
while ago.
ERP meeting that we had, and you mentioned it that day. I was able to locate it and just sent it out, so.
Oh, okay. Is that, oh, okay.
Because with all these expenses, I'm just curious, are you still feeling, because with your professional services budget within admin, are you still feeling okay with, we're incurring a lot of big expenses with this ERP and some of that stuff? At some point, do you want to shift, possibly have to look at shifting, because we held off a lot of technology projects because of this?
Sure.
Do we need to at some point look at shifting some of the expense into the CIP technology?
Possibly. I think that'd be a good discussion to have with our upcoming CAP meetings. And again, professional services is a myriad of things. I know there's always some unexpected things that come up. For example, last year we didn't intend on spending so much on a lawsuit with the state auditor, but those things come up every year where we have to incur some costs with there too. So we try and keep that line pretty lean. So it would be good to revisit it, I guess, to answer Commissioner Betch's question.
We haven't received a final bill yet on that either, have we?
No, we've received some smaller incremental, because there hasn't been a lot of activity. I think you got an update last week. We're kind of waiting for the final decision, so.
Yeah.
Commissioners, just to be clear, we're talking about 100's professional services, right?
Correct,
Or not
yes.
admin, but 100 is professional service, but it's more the fact that we have enough in the 100 professional services. Just because we've gone to that well quite a bit already, just in the short period of time this year already.
Sure.
Just so we're allocating the expenses kind of to where they are, just not that we're going to be looking at, hey, we spent this much in professional services this year in 100, but a lot of that stuff is maybe kind of an anomaly because it was held off projects from this technology base.
Sure.
Anything else?
Just an update that we did meet with Anthony and Bruce from BKV to get a proposal, get them started on developing a proposal for the potential design of a new facility. So they're estimating 2 to 3 weeks they'll have that for us. We asked them to do a full proposal, similar as if they were submitting a new, if we were doing an RFP, similar to that style. So it'll be front to back, total design, costs and such. So I'll let you know when we receive that.
Okay.
No further updates.
Commissioner Burrell?
Mr. Chair, thank you. Before I begin with my updates, I just want to pass on some sad news too. We had former Marysville Township Supervisor Ed Belkey passed away. His funeral was last Saturday. He also served on the Planning Commission in Wright County here. So, and his funeral was last Saturday. And then also many of you may remember Sergeant Jim Lammers, a retired Wright County sheriff, and he passed away last week, and his funeral will be this coming Saturday at Waverly. So kind of sad news there, both people that I knew real well. So, and beyond that, Derek mentioned the Township Officers Association meeting, talking with buffers, and I just want to put it out there that after talking with some of the supervisors out there and going over things with Derek, Greg, if you want to bring that buffer thing back, I'm going to support it, but it will be with a little bit of a caveat. So just so you guys know that. And anyway, then soil water meeting last night, there's quite a few things. Somebody mentioned that they were going to probably go with the Springstead for their classification study. The other thing was the decontamination unit out at the inspection place.
Up in Annandale?
Have water, so there's a fire hydrant there that they could maybe put a meter on, but apparently that's not being real well received by the people up there, so they might.
In Annandale? Really?
Yeah.
That's interesting. I don't know how they could figure it.
Yeah, it's just, but anyway, they can, I mean, the water supply is there, so they may have to just do an access onto that, but they did authorize the payment if it came to that, because they can't be without water.
No.
That's kind of hard to decontaminate.
Right. We cannot decontaminate without water.
I wonder what the hookup charge is. It's got to be a pretty decent penny of a hookup charge.
It could be up to like $4,000.
That's what I say.
Whack charge.
Hopefully they can negotiate something with the city. If they're not willing to let them use the fire hydrant with a meter on there, maybe they can give them a good deal.
Yeah, and I know there's some goofy rules that have gone through that it actually requires a plumber to put on a meter with a PRV and to take it off. New rule that came through. Licensed plumber.
Okay.
Anyway, that's all I had.
Yeah, aside from the township officers meeting, which that was well attended and we have a lot of good discussion. So that's about it for me for advisory committee.
I don't know why you guys have such a hard time taking care of your townships. I have no problems with any of mine at all. Bertram Lakes, we got together last Friday. It went off without a hitch. Derek wasn't there, so that worked out really well. One of the things we talked about was concept plans for the future campgrounds. There's some information in the back. And the two choices really for the first part of it were very similar, little minor modifications on both of them, but that'll be finished up, and final on that will be coming forward in the future. Regarding phase 2 or a phase 3, we don't know what the future is going to bring, so there's some concepts out there, but until we know when that happens and what's going on at that point, we probably won't do anything. One of the things that is going to be on the first phase are camper cabins. And I know, Charlie, you prefer your camper itself, but, you know, if you get a flat tire and you can't, you know, this camper cabin will have everything you need to sleep.
So we will be there permanently, or?
Yes. And that was actually one of the couple of different companies that when we were interviewing had suggested it. But it's in I shouldn't say all, but it's in a lot of the federal and state parks.
So they're like a unit that they just bring in?
It's just a simple bunkhouse. Mm-hmm. No bathroom, no running water. Some are heated.
Yeah.
But for the most part, it's camping, but you're in a building. Mm-hmm. You know, it's for some of those people that live in the cities that really can't rough it, you know, camping.
Or they don't have room to park their camper, or don't, you know, because they're limited.
Or, you know, they're just,
they don't want to be.
I'm not going to say about attorneys or anything like that, but, you know.
To get out of the elements.
Greg, he roughed it. He went out to the Grand. He was out to the Grand Teton.
Yeah.
Yeah, and he did tell you he was in one of those camper cabins.
And
Yeah.
He was in the Hilton camper cab?
I can appreciate that, you know, going camping with 4 young kids and in a tent, and it just rains. I mean, cats and dogs, and there's, you know, the ground and everything is wet, so you're,
yep,
kind of everybody goes and sits in the car, sleeps in the car because you're sopping wet, so.
Yeah,
there's advantages.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Absolutely.
And they're the younger people are going back to camping, so that's a trend.
How much will they cost?
They're about 30, they're give or take.
And that includes the
30,
campsite?
Depends on how you build them out there. About 25 to 35,000 to construct.
You're talking about per day.
To rent.
That's what I thought.
To rent, they're between 50 and 75, depending on where you go. A day.
And that includes the campsite then and everything.
Yeah. There'll be, you know, a campsite for fire and.
I thought you wanted to know how much they cost to construct.
Yeah.
No electricity on them either, though? Or do they have lights?
No,
electricity.
Electricity.
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah.
We already run power through a good portion of the campsites anyway, so it doesn't really change.
Sure. Okay. That'd be interesting.
Mark, just with the campground, do they have an overhead, so like a picnic table out front? One of these camper shells that you're looking at, like a KOA has it where it got a little bit of
I don't think
overhang that's got so if you had a picnic table out front, you wouldn't have to be outside and get wet for that if you're in the.
He had a couple of concepts there, and I can't remember if there was that, but yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah, with that little overhang.
Just enough of overhang for the picnic table, so they're not out in the weather with that.
Yeah, and the camper, those cabins, again, they're small, but they're actually looking at a company here in Buffalo that will pre-build them, and then they just get put together as panels. I thought he said it was from Buffalo.
You know, you'd almost think they could do
CCC, is
it
that
for
the one
cheaper
out
than
of
that.
Waverly?
Montrose has.
Montrose, they do that.
Yeah, there was somebody here, but anyway, you know, it'll all be the future, and, you know, it's not gonna be happening this year or next year.
But other campgrounds, private ones, have bunk houses.
Yep.
That just have the bunks with the electric in there, and they have a little bit bigger one for more than one picnic table, can seat like 6 to 8 people or sleep them in there. And they work out well for a small crowd that goes there. And they're well received, and they're inexpensive alternative to having a tent.
And these are gonna be the first section of them, and that's why phase 2 and 3, who knows what the future will bring. There might be, lots of people might wanna use these. But these will be close to the Long Lake Lookout.
Yeah.
And the lookout right now is in extreme disrepair, and an Eagle Scout is gonna be removing that, and I believe they're hoping to put a new one up this summer. And it's a really neat lookout overlooking Long Lake there. And if you haven't been there yet, it's a beautiful, beautiful park. In fact, I was talking to one person that just moved down here from Ely. And I said, if you get homesick, so go out to Bertram. No boats, canoes. Only thing you're missing are the rocks, big rocks. But other than that, it's very similar. Let's see, then there was one other thing. We were having some issues with the, out at Bertram Lake at the building out there.
Oh, we had the septic,
Soleil.
the water septic?
No, the Soleil.
Oh, the
Soleil. With sound issues in there. It was terrible. I don't know, yeah, you guys were all there. So they had some pictures made up, and it was put on a sound gathering fabric, and they're up now.
Okay.
Including one over the door. And it's night and day difference. Really impressive. The pictures are beautiful, and you can hold a conversation in there without having to yell. Yeah. No, it made a major difference. So
what about the building named after former Commissioner Swatsky? How's that one doing?
I won't give you the technical name for that building, but, you know, hopefully it'll be opening here in May when the ice goes out. But I know which building you're talking about. And the bathrooms are all done, you know. And
it's all in jest, but it was funny.
Did you guys ever see
that building? You guys gone out there and seen the beach house?
Oh, I'll have to show you pictures in back. We told Mark to cut corners, and he actually did. Inside the building.
He cut them?
He cut corners. Just,
I
gotta show you the picture.
You gotta see this.
It's pretty humorous.
It's humorous.
Anyway, it was a cost-saving measure. We told him to cut corners, and he did. Other than that, I think that was it. Anybody else have anything? And we have leadership at 10:30. And there is a 911 meeting at 1 o'clock. And that's where?
It's 118 here.
118?
Yep.
An extension meeting at 4.
And I have crime lab at 2, so.
Wright County Committee action tonight, and credit card meeting at 3, right?
Yep.
All right. Hearing nothing else, we are adjourned at 9:55.